It was supposed to be just another birthday surprise on The Ellen Show. The kind of sweet, feel-good moment that made audiences smile and reminded everyone why Ellen DeGeneres was America's sweetheart. But when 7-year-old Sofia Martinez stood on that stage, clutching her mother's hand and staring into those bright studio lights, she said 7 words that would stop the show, break every heart in that room, and change how Ellen approached every single episode after that day. "This might be my last birthday, Ellen." The studio fell silent, 300 people holding their breath. Ellen's smile frozen mid-expression. And in that moment, what was supposed to be a celebration became something much deeper, a reminder that sometimes the most precious gifts come wrapped in the most fragile packages. But let me take you back to how we got to this moment, because the story that led to Sofia's 7 words is one that proves love shows up in the most unexpected places. It was a Tuesday morning in Burbank, and The Ellen Show was in full swing. The energy was electric as always, Ellen dancing through the audience, cameras capturing every laugh, every surprised gasp, every moment of pure joy that made the show a daily dose of happiness for millions of viewers. The show had started like any other. Ellen's opening monologue had the audience in stitches, her dance moves were infectious, and the guest lineup promised the perfect blend of celebrity interviews and heartwarming surprises. The production team buzzed with their usual efficiency, cameras gliding smoothly across the studio floor, capturing every angle of Ellen's natural charisma. During the show's opening, Ellen had her usual banter with the crowd, asking about birthdays, anniversaries, special occasions. The audience participation segment was always one of her favorites, those spontaneous moments when real life intersected with the carefully orchestrated world of television. When she spotted a small hand waving frantically in the 3rd row, she couldn't help but notice the bright yellow dress and the biggest smile she'd seen all week. But there was something else Ellen noticed, something that made her pause mid-stride through the audience. The way the little girl's mother kept checking her watch, not with impatience, but with the careful attention of someone counting precious minutes. The way other audience members seemed to gravitate toward their row, as if sensing something special about this family. "Well, hello there," Ellen called out, her voice carrying that warmth that had made her a household name. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Sofia," the little girl called back, her voice small but clear in the vast studio. "And it's my birthday." The audience erupted in applause, but Ellen noticed that Carmen Martinez, Sofia's mother, was clapping with tears already forming in her eyes. Not tears of joy, but something deeper, more complex. Ellen had been hosting long enough to recognize when someone was carrying more than they could bear. Ellen's face lit up with that genuine excitement she was known for. "Your birthday? Well, we can't let that slide. How old are you turning today?" 7, Sofia announced proudly, holding up 7 tiny fingers. The cameras zoomed in, capturing the moment for the millions watching at home. But what the cameras couldn't capture was the way Sofia's breath came a little too quickly, the way she leaned slightly against her mother for support, the medication reminder app that buzzed quietly on Carmen's phone. That should have been it. A sweet moment, some birthday wishes, maybe a small gift from the show's sponsors. But something about Sofia caught Ellen's attention. The way she held her mother's hand just a little too tightly, the way her bright smile couldn't quite hide the shadows under her eyes, the careful way her mother watched every movement, as if memorizing each gesture. Ellen had been in entertainment long enough to develop an instinct for when someone needed more than just a moment in the spotlight. She'd learned to read the subtle signs, the forced cheerfulness that masked deeper struggles, the way families held each other just a little too tightly when they appeared on her show. "Sofia, would you like to come up here and tell everyone about your birthday?" Ellen asked, stepping down from the stage as she always did when she wanted to connect more personally with her audience. Sofia's eyes went wide. She looked up at her mother, Carmen Martinez, who nodded encouragingly despite the worry lines etched around her eyes. Carmen had driven 3 hours from Bakersfield to Los Angeles, using money they couldn't really afford to spend on gas, because Sofia had one dream: to meet Ellen DeGeneres on her birthday. The journey to Los Angeles had been more than just a road trip for the Martinez family. It represented hope in its purest form. Carmen had applied for audience tickets months ago, when Sofia's doctors had first explained the severity of her condition. She'd written letter after letter to the show's producers, explaining why this mattered so much, why her daughter deserved this one perfect day. As Sofia made her way to the stage, the cameras captured every step. She moved slowly, deliberately, like someone much older than 7. Each step was measured, careful, the walk of someone who'd learned that energy was precious and shouldn't be wasted. When she reached Ellen, she looked up with those enormous brown eyes that seemed to hold secrets too heavy for such a small frame. Ellen knelt down to Sofia's level, as she always did with younger guests. The studio lights caught the small medical alert bracelet on Sofia's wrist, a detail that most viewers wouldn't notice but that spoke volumes to anyone who knew what to look for. "So, tell me about your birthday, Sofia. What makes this one special?" That's when Sofia said it, those 7 words that would haunt Ellen for months afterward. "This might be my last birthday, Ellen." The words hung in the air like a prayer. Ellen's smile didn't fade immediately. Her brain needed a moment to process what she'd just heard. But then the reality hit her like a physical blow. This wasn't a child being dramatic. This was a child telling her truth, with the matter-of-fact honesty that only comes from facing something unthinkable. Behind the cameras, the production team froze. This wasn't in any script. The director's hand hovered over his headset, unsure whether to cut to commercial, to redirect, to somehow return to the safety of scheduled programming. But something in Ellen's posture told them to keep rolling. "Sweetheart," Ellen said softly, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "What do you mean?" Sofia looked back at her mother, who had moved closer to the stage. Carmen's eyes were already filling with tears. She nodded at her daughter, giving her permission to share what they'd been carrying alone for so long. "I have a bad heart," Sofia said simply. "The doctors say I need a new one, but there aren't enough hearts for all the kids who need them, so I might not get one in time." The studio was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning humming. Ellen felt something break inside her chest, not just her heart, but her entire understanding of what this moment meant. This wasn't about birthday wishes anymore. This was about a little girl who understood mortality in a way no 7-year-old should. In the control room, producers were frantically whispering into their headsets, trying to figure out how to handle this unprecedented moment. But Ellen was no longer thinking about television logistics. She was thinking about Sofia, standing there in her yellow birthday dress, carrying hope and fear in equal measure. Ellen made a decision in that moment that would define everything that came after. She stood up and addressed her production team, her voice carrying across the silent studio. "Stop the music. Stop everything. Clear the schedule." Behind the scenes, producers scrambled. This wasn't in any script. This wasn't part of the show format. But Ellen wasn't thinking about television anymore. She was thinking about Sofia, standing there in her yellow birthday dress, carrying hope and fear in equal measure. Ellen turned back to Sofia and knelt down again. "Sofia, I want to ask you something very important. What would make this the best birthday ever?" Sofia thought for a moment, then answered with the kind of honesty that only children possess. "I want my mom to stop being scared. She tries to hide it, but I know she cries at night. She thinks it's her fault that my heart is broken." Carmen covered her mouth, trying to muffle her sobs. The cameras captured it all, the raw, unfiltered emotion that couldn't be scripted or manufactured. Ellen reached up and took her hand, pulling her closer to the stage. "Mrs. Martinez," Ellen said, her voice now carrying a gravity that transcended entertainment. "Come up here, both of you. Because what Sofia just said, that's not just beautiful. That's the most important thing anyone has ever said on this stage." Carmen climbed onto the stage, her hands shaking. Ellen guided both mother and daughter to the center, under the bright lights that suddenly felt warm instead of harsh. "Sofia," Ellen said, "I want you to know something. Your heart isn't broken. Your heart is the strongest, most beautiful heart I've ever encountered. And your mom isn't scared because she's weak. She's scared because she loves you more than anything in this world." But Ellen wasn't finished. She walked to the edge of the stage and addressed the camera directly, speaking to the millions of viewers watching at home. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Sofia Martinez. Today is her 7th birthday, and she's fighting for her life. But what she's really doing is showing all of us what courage looks like, what love looks like, what hope looks like, what hope looks like." Ellen reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out her phone. "Sofia, I'm going to make some calls. I'm going to talk to some people. Because sometimes, when someone as special as you needs help, the whole world should know about it." The audience began to respond, not with the usual applause, but with something deeper. People were reaching for tissues, for each other's hands, for their phones to share what they were witnessing. But then something happened that no one expected. Ellen walked backstage for a moment, spoke quietly to her producers, and returned with something that made Sofia gasp. It was a birthday cake. Not just any birthday cake, but Ellen's own birthday cake, the one her staff had prepared for Ellen's upcoming birthday, the following week. Sofia, Ellen said, this was supposed to be my birthday cake, but I realized something. Today we're both celebrating. You're celebrating 7 years of being the most amazing little girl in the world, and I'm celebrating the day I met someone who reminded me what really matters. Ellen placed the cake on a small table that had been brought onto the stage. But before we have cake, I have someone here who wanted to meet you. The studio lights dimmed slightly, and from the wings emerged someone that made Sofia's eyes go wide with wonder. Belle from Beauty and the Beast, not just any performer, but the actual Disney actress who portrayed Belle at Disneyland. Happy birthday, Sofia, Belle said in that familiar magical voice. I heard there was a princess here who needed a birthday wish. Sofia couldn't speak. She just stared as Belle approached, carrying a small wrapped box. This is from all of us at Disney, Belle said, kneeling down beside Sofia. Because every princess deserves a magical birthday. Sofia opened the box with trembling hands. Inside was a small golden heart-shaped locket. When she opened it, there was a picture of Belle on one side, and on the other, the words "Brave Heart." That's for you to wear, Belle explained, whenever you need to remember how brave you are. Ellen watched this unfold with tears streaming down her face, but she had one more surprise. Sofia, Ellen said, I made those phone calls I mentioned, and I want you to know that starting tomorrow, your story is going to be shared with the world, not because you're sick, but because you're extraordinary. The Ellen DeGeneres Foundation is going to work with the American Heart Association to make sure people know about children like you who are waiting for heart transplants. Ellen paused, wiping her eyes. But more than that, I want you to know that you're not alone in this fight. This whole studio, everyone watching at home, we're all rooting for you. The moment that defined everything came when Ellen made an announcement that shocked everyone in the studio. Starting next week, Ellen said, we're going to dedicate every Tuesday show to highlighting children who are waiting for organ transplants, not just to raise awareness, but to celebrate their courage, their family's strength, and the medical teams who work miracles every day. She turned back to Sofia. And you, sweet girl, you started it all with your honesty, your bravery, and your beautiful heart. The audience rose to their feet, but this wasn't typical talk show applause. This was the sound of hearts breaking and healing simultaneously, of a community forming around one little girl's courage. But the story doesn't end there, because what happened in the months that followed proved that sometimes television really can change lives. Within 48 hours of Sofia's episode airing, the American Heart Association received over 10,000 calls from people wanting to learn about organ donation. Sofia's story was shared millions of times across social media, with the hashtag #BraveHeartSofia trending worldwide. 3 weeks later, Sofia received the call her family had been praying for. A compatible heart had become available. The surgery was successful, performed by a team of doctors who had been following her story and wanted to be part of her miracle. Ellen was there when Sofia woke up from surgery, wearing the Belle locket around her neck. The first words Sofia spoke were, Ellen, my new heart feels like it knows how to love already. 6 months later, Sofia returned to The Ellen Show for a special follow-up episode. She walked onto that stage with confidence, color in her cheeks, and energy that radiated throughout the studio. She was wearing the same yellow dress, now a little tight, because she'd grown so much. Ellen, Sofia said, I have something to tell you. The doctors say my new heart is perfect. And you know what? I think it's perfect because it learned how to be brave from watching you be brave with me. Ellen, who had interviewed thousands of celebrities and dignitaries, said later that Sofia's return was the most emotional moment of her entire career. The Tuesday organ donation awareness shows became a permanent feature of The Ellen Show, eventually leading to a 300% increase in organ donor registrations. Sofia became a regular guest, not as a patient, but as an advocate, helping other children tell their stories. On Sofia's 8th birthday, exactly 1 year after that first appearance, Ellen surprised her with something unprecedented. The entire show was dedicated to Sofia's birthday, but more than that, they announced the Sofia Martinez Foundation for Pediatric Heart Transplant Awareness. Last year, Ellen told the audience, a 7-year-old girl taught me that birthdays aren't about getting older. They're about celebrating every moment we have with the people we love. Ellen looked directly at Sofia, who was sitting in the front row with Carmen, both of them healthy and glowing. Sofia, you didn't just get a new heart, you gave all of us new hearts. You reminded us what it means to love fearlessly, hope boldly, and live bravely. Today, Sofia Martinez is 8 years old and thriving. She still watches The Ellen Show every day, but now she also appears on it regularly. sharing her story and encouraging other children facing medical challenges. Her yellow birthday dress has been retired to a place of honor in her bedroom, but her courage has only grown stronger. Carmen Martinez returned to school to become a pediatric nurse, inspired by the medical team that saved her daughter's life. She says that watching Ellen care for Sofia showed her how healing happens, not just through medicine, but through love, attention, and the simple act of seeing someone's pain and choosing to help carry it. Ellen keeps a photo of Sofia on her desk, not the sad, fragile little girl who first walked onto her stage, but the vibrant, healthy child she became. Because sometimes the most powerful transformations happen not in front of millions of viewers, but in the quiet moments when someone chooses to see beyond the surface and recognize the extraordinary in what appears ordinary. The lesson Sofia taught everyone that day, audience members, viewers at home, and Ellen herself, was simple but profound. Every birthday is precious, every moment matters, and sometimes the best way to celebrate your own life is to help someone else celebrate theirs. That's not just television, that's humanity at its most beautiful, and that's why, sometimes, the most important episodes are the ones that remind us that behind every smile, every story, every person sitting in that audience, there's a whole world of hope, fear, love, and courage waiting to be acknowledged. Because when a 7-year-old girl can teach a studio full of adults what it really means to be brave, that's not entertainment, that's transformation.